Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Empowered Mama Summit. Today I have Twyla Clarke, who is an intuitive and spiritual life coach. Thank you, Twyla, so much for being here. Will you share with the mamas that are tuning in a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on this summit with so many amazing women, and of course with you.
Thank
Um, so a little bit about me is, as Carmen said, I'm an intuitive and spiritual life coach, also known as the spiritual gardener. And the reason why is because I'm able to see intuitively the roots of women's issues. So what is it that's holding us back? What is it that's what is that pain point that is stopping us from really stepping into who we were created to be? And then as I find that out, then we work on healing those things and not just covering them up or kind of like sweeping them under the rug. Because a lot of times what happens is these are the things that have been swept under the rug for like decades, right? that we just want to forget about and never think about again. And so it's really bringing those things to the surface, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that we're triggered, and these things, if they're forgotten about or kind of like tossed aside or whatever, then it just builds up, and eventually it just has to bubble over and come to the surface. So it's really about healing all of that stuff and really getting to the roots of what your issues are and healing those issues so that you can step into the woman that you've been created to be.
I love that. That's like the true definition of like stepping into your power, right? And I think that,
Absolutely.
the work that you do is amazing because
Thank you.
there's so many things, right, that have happened to us in our past. Like I think you and I, we kind of know each other's story a bit.
Mhm.
But there's so many things that happen to us and we're like, it's okay. It's the result of a, like effed up childhood, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, and not really acknowledging the events that have happened and how we need to heal those so that we can move on and really like own who we are. Um,
Absolutely.
and one thing that, I know I gave you a couple of questions, and so I'm going to switch them up a little bit, but I know that you're a huge proponent of this idea of self-love, right? And really loving who we are to the core, right? And kind of, I guess, in the sense of spiritual gardening, kind of tending to those weeds that may have sprouted up as a result of outside influences. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the importance of self-love and, how that relates to to owning your power and reclaiming your power and kind of getting rid of those weeds so that, the flowers can blossom.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you said at our core, because I seriously got chills when you said that.
Oh,
But it's so important because society places these labels on us, right? And so growing up, we get these labels, and then we get the outside influences, our parents, childhood, all these things come into play. And we tend to seem like we're not good enough, right? Like there's something wrong with us. And then from there, we're kind of looking at, okay, well, how do I fix myself? How do I change? Right. And then that's when we start going on the quest, right? Like looking for ways to fix or to change who we are. And the idea of self love, for me, I know that there's a lot of self love advocates out there. And I know that some women have different takes on self love. But for me, self love means accepting, understanding, embracing who we actually are. So it's not about change. It's not about, being somebody that we aren't. It's about looking at all of us, right? Even the areas that we think are flawed because we've been told that they're flawed,
yeah.
right? And really learning that that's what makes us who we are. That's what makes us authentic. That's what makes us unique. And then really learning how to embrace it, you know,
Yeah.
because that's self love. That's essentially what self love is.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's such a great definition, but it's like loving ourselves, fully, flaws and all. And And it's so important in terms of, reclaiming our power or fully stepping into our power to then create this legacy that we want to leave behind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me ask you, what does legacy mean to you?
Oh, legacy. I love that word because you know what? It has so much depth to it. Because when we think about our legacy, for me, when I think about the legacy I want to leave behind, it's not just about, what am I leaving for my family or what am I leaving for my kids? It's about who do I want them to be? How do I want to be remembered? What is the impact or the imprint that I want to be left here? Not just with my kids, not just with my family and my acquaintances, but that imprint of me on the world. We all have a unique set of fingerprints and we all have a unique signature. It's how do we leave that imprint and that signature on the world?
Yeah.
And, some of us, I know there's a lot of women who are like, well, I don't have like this big mission, or I don't want to like lead like a global movement. And I get it because it's not for everybody. Right. And sometimes I wonder what the heck have I gotten myself into? But at the same time, it's not about whether you're leading like this big global movement or just a movement within your home. Right? Yeah. It's how do you want to be remembered? And what is it that you want to leave behind? What are the memories? What are the values that you want to leave behind in the people who love you?
Yeah. And I think that's such a great point because, we have a diverse range of women that are, tuning into us today. And so thinking about, what legacy is and how big you want it to be or how just like private and personal you want it to be for specifically for your children. Maybe it's that you are currently a stay-at-home mom, right? And you want to just be the best mother possible.
Exactly.
And that's amazing because your kids will carry that on, into future generations. And that's amazing and loving and perfect. Or you can be somebody who wants to, solve world hunger, or you want to, for you, for example, you're on like a self-love mission and you want to, spread it everywhere and it's amazing. And moms that are tuning in, like, it's okay that it stays within your home. Maybe it's a piece of art that you paint and there's so much meaning and, there's a story behind it and only your children will ever know that, or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren. Or maybe it's Picasso's, like some art piece that's like in the Louvre in Paris, or, the Mona Lisa that's like everybody knows that, that piece. So whatever it is, like, I think that that's important to, I think that's a great point about, it can be big or small, but it's whatever works for you and in your fullness.
Exactly. And it's really by your own definition, right? And that's why I'm sure going through this summit, you're hearing like all different types of definitions, right? Because we all have a different outlook on what something means to us. And yeah, that's exactly it. It doesn't have to be like this big go big or go home movement. It could be something that's smaller and more sacred to your heart.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. Obviously, self-love is important. As part of self-love, right, it's getting to know yourself on a deeper level and being able to create a life around those things that call you. So why say living a purpose-filled life is important? And then do you have any tips for the moms that are, that are watching us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think living a purpose-filled life is very important because we all want to live for something. And whether it's big, whether it's small, it doesn't matter, right? We all want to live for something. And I think that's the meaning of purpose, is living for something, right? Whether it is a grand mission or just making sure that you raise some pretty awesome kids, right? Which is hard. Right? Which is hard in itself. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So whatever it is, but the thing is, for me, it's a little bit different too. It's a little bit deeper. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we're moms, we get lost, in being a mom. And we forget about ourselves. We forget about who we are. We forget about the things that are important to us, that we value. And so it's really about figuring out exactly what it is that you want. Not what society told you that you should want, not what your parents want for you or your aunt down the street or whoever, right? Or what somebody told you should be in college or high school or whatever, right? Like it's about what is it that you actually want, and release the filters, like release the limitation, release everything, and just say, what is it that I want? Like truly want in my life. And when you get there, get a pen and paper and start writing everything down, whether you see it, whether you feel it, whether you hear it, whether you just know it, whatever it is, just begin to write it down. And then the next step is to know that everything on your list, whether it's grand, small, seems impossible, whatever it is, if you had the capability to imagine it, you have the capability to have it. And so from there, it's to know that you're worthy of it and that you actually deserve it. Like it's not just oh yeah, I really want this thing, but you know, I can't have it, or oh my gosh, that seems impossible, or that will never happen for me.
Yeah.
Right? Stepping into self-love, knowing that you're worthy means that you know that no matter how out of realm it seems, or how out of reality, that it is actually possible for you and that you actually deserve it. And then getting into that state of being where you know that you're worthy and that you deserve everything that it is that's on that list.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and the thing that I want to touch on is this idea of, you know, this idea of who, you know, when it's people are like, oh, well, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? Or what is my purpose, or what am I supposed to be doing in this life? And so when I think back to the first job that I ever wanted, right, when I was like 5, was I wanted to be a teacher. And as I'm going through school, I'm like, okay, teaching seems cool. And then I saw Dangerous Minds and I was like, I want to be a high school teacher and I'm going to change lives, right? Like I'm about to change lives by being a teacher. And then, you know, I sit down, I tell my dad, hey, this is what I'm doing. And he's like, but teachers don't make any money. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, well then I won't be a teacher. And then it's kind of, you know, then I'm on this quest of, well, what am I going to do? Right. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to be a CEO of some business, or maybe I'll be a linguist and learn about words. And I'm like, who does that? Like, where's money there? And, you know, this idea of you have to make money and your, you know, like your family of origin has like a lot to do with, you know, how you think. And so I was an anthropology major studying different cultures, which kind of goes into the teaching and all that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh, let's become a lawyer because that's prestigious in the eyes of, you know, society. And while there, I tried to drop out twice. And here I am teaching women how to reclaim their power and create their legacies, right? And I get to teach them with other women like yourself and the other women on this expert. And then now I'm back to that root of, oh, I am a teacher in a different way. And because of my path, you know, and so knowing that you can reconnect with the person you were when you were 4 or 5, before people told you couldn't be something or you couldn't go to the moon, you know, and your journey to loving yourself and all of the pieces and loving your journey, right? All the crap that's happened, all the things that come up, but fully loving every part of that and all your flaws and crazy to bring you to where you are now, and then to propel you further into the future to create that legacy. So I think that's, you know, it's funny because I'm like, oh, I used to want to be a teacher. And then I was like, well, then they're like, there's no money. So figure it out. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I know your story. I know kind of how you've come to become this, you know, amazing coach who I'm like, I like to call the self-love coach, because that's basically like, you know, what you teach, you know, like you coach a lot of clients on it, and I know it goes deeper than that. But were you always living, you know, a purpose-filled life? And if not, like, what was your turning point? Where did you?
Yeah, sure. That's what we'll call it. No, absolutely not. I wish that I could say that this was my life all the time, right? But like, what fun would that be? No, absolutely not. I was miserable. Like the most miserable person probably on the earth because that's how I felt.
And you know what? And it's, you're laughing, but I'm sure that there are moms that are tuning in that feel this
Yes,
way. And this is the one thing that I love. And sorry for interrupting you, but the one thing that I love
that's
is
okay.
that all of the women that we have in this summit have been stuck at some point in their life, have not been on their path, or haven't been fulfilled. And so
That's right.
moms, like, know that you are not alone. Like, we have all
Yes.
been there, and we are here to share our stories and let you know that you can switch it around. But yeah.
That's absolutely right. And it's so funny because at the time when I was going through it, like I knew that I was miserable, but I didn't know how miserable I was. And I thought that it was normal, right? I was like, this is how it is. Like this is how people wake up. Like I never used to wake up happy. And there was people that I knew who were like, yeah, I wake up happy every day. And I'm like, that shit is not realistic. Like, who does that?
You're like, stop
Right?
lying, stop lying.
Right? I was like, what Prozac are you taking and can I have some? Um, but honestly, that's what I thought. I thought that it was unrealistic. Like these people didn't exist or they were making it up because I couldn't understand how that could be because I couldn't remember as far back as I could go other than when I was really young, waking up really happy. And so I realized that I woke up one day actually, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, how did I get here? Like, how did my life get to this? And I had kids, and that's the thing, because as moms, we hold so much guilt and hold so much shame because our kids are supposed to be our everything, and they're supposed to give us all this happiness and all this joy. And I was miserable. And it's not that I didn't love my kids. I loved my kids. But there was this part of me where it was like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? Where is my life?
Yeah.
And I looked in the mirror and I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. Because if this is it, it's not worth it. And it's not that it came from like a place of like suicide or anything like that. Like I was just going to like, end it all or anything. Like it wasn't from there, but it was just from this place of like, what the hell? Like, what is happening? Yeah. And then I started getting feelings of more and like this not being it and that there was more out there. And like, I always tell women, like, if you're feeling this feeling of more, don't try to define it. Don't try and put a limitation on it. Because people are like, well, what did it feel like? Like, explain it to me. And I'm like, I can't. Like, it was abundance. It was love. It was joy. It was happiness. It was fulfillment. It was everything that I wanted in my life and didn't have. And so when those feelings started rushing in, I was like, well, what's happening here? And then that's when I started to become self-aware to all of my pain and to everything that was going on internally that I had shoved down and didn't allow myself to feel, that I had just numbed away from. And as I began to feel those things was when I realized, hold on a second, there's a lot more going on here than what I'm giving myself permission to feel. And then so that's when I truly began my healing journey. And when I began my healing journey, it wasn't out of self-love, because if somebody told me that I didn't love myself, I would have been like, bitch, please, like, you don't know me. Right? Because I was coming from like a place of ego, right? Like, how dare you tell me that I don't love myself?
Right.
Right? But the truth was, I didn't love myself, but I didn't know that. And then so going through this healing journey and learning all of these bits and pieces about me is really what became self-love. So, I understand it fully now because I've traveled the journey, but a lot of women don't know that what they actually need in their life is self-love. And self-love is the ultimate healer, I believe. Once we learn, like I said, to accept, understand, and embrace. That's when you can do those three things, that's when you learn to love yourself.
Yeah. There's so much about that I love, because self-love is important. It's like absolutely important. And acknowledging that, when, I'm sure there's some women on here that are like, oh, I love myself. I love myself. But when you do the deeper work and you really question, you look at your, day-to-day behavior, the relationships that you're getting into, the shit that you're putting up with, from a boss, a coworker, a partner, whatever, your kids, like, because those are true, like, boundary testers, right? Those little,
that's right.
But when you really look at it, and even just like the amount of time that you'll spend to take care of yourself, not in like this self-care, like go get a massage, but this like,
that's right.
Meditate or figure out who you are, because, you're right. As moms, we kind of, feel like we have to have it all figured out, but we also put all of our ish on the back burner. Like we'll say, what, I can't deal with that because I have to be the best mom to my kid, or I have to just sweep it under the rug and not feel the feelings because, my kids need me. But where it kind of, it'll just kind of build up, and then there's this explosion, and you're like, and you lose your shit on them, right? Because
that's right.
Because you're not dealing with the other work. And so I'm sure there's moms that are here that are like, I love myself. And, I've been in relationships and I've dealt with enough, I've been in contact, both, like intimate relationships and then friendship relationship kind of a thing, where I can see, and I'm sure you can see too, is you see this toxic behavior or these things, these self-sabotage things that are coming up. And that person who is doing all this destruction is really the one person who is also claiming that they love themselves, when their behavior speaks louder than, than the words, I love myself. So I think that's super important. And in being able to fully love yourself, right? Flaws and all, it's empowering, right? To really say, you know what? I love me to the core, to like, not this like surface level, oh, I love myself, like I look cute today or whatever. It's like a deeper, I love myself. I love that I'm loud and obnoxious to people who are very quiet. Like, I love that. I will laugh at anything, even if it's not funny, like, and it may annoy people. Like, I love that about myself, and so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in being able to say that you love all of these things about yourself, it's empowering. So what would you say, being empowered, like, means to you? Like, I know self-love is, plays a big part, but I want to get your take
absolutely
on empowerment.
To me, being empowered, it goes so deep, because it's all about knowing your value, knowing what you're truly worth. Because when you know your value and you know what you're truly worth, you don't tolerate shit any longer, right? You put a stop to everything that no longer serves you. And so you stop the people pleasing, right? Like, how many of us are people pleasers and don't even know we're people pleasers, right? Exactly.
It's a work in progress.
Exactly, right? But it's to know that these are real things. Like, these are real issues that we as women go through, because we're told that we're supposed to be nurturers and we're supposed to take care of people and we're supposed to protect people's feelings and all of this crap. But who's protecting us, right? Who's got our backs, right? And so we go through this whole thing, this whole life, protecting everybody and making sure that everybody around us is happy. Meanwhile, we're like sobbing in the corner in like miserable heaps, like I was, right? Because we haven't placed ourselves as a priority. And so to me, being empowered means standing in your true power, standing up for yourself, having the difficult conversations, having those conversations that we're scared to have, because we don't want to be like have a conflict, right? Like, how many of us are scared of conflict? I was scared of conflict for so long, right? Now I'm like, F that, like, let's have a conversation here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so to me, it's all about standing in your power, standing in your true self, and knowing that you're not going to tolerate, you're not going to compromise, and you're not going to settle for mediocre. right? And whether that's a mediocre life, whether it's mediocre people, or mediocre treatment, whatever that is, you're no longer going to tolerate it and accept it as your normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one thing that came up for me was, this idea of, feeling like you've settled, because I know that I have friends and, clients that I've come in contact with, and they're like, I'm feeling like I'm settling. Like I settled into this relationship. I settled down and had kids. I bought this house and I'm working this 9 to 5 because that's what I think I'm supposed to do. But
Absolutely.
I'm settling, and I know that I'm meant for more. And so it's like, yes, get out of that and, love yourself enough to show your children that you love yourself, and that they too will then love themselves and, create this ability to tolerate only what they're willing, only what is good enough for them,
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the things, because I have 4 daughters. And I don't want to I know the life that I've lived. I know the relationships that I've been through. I do not want to see my daughters go through that same cycle. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest things for me. That's what really called me. I was like, the cycle has to stop.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm carrying like pain from the generations before me, and I refuse to give that to my daughters.
Yeah.
I refuse to let that be their story,
Yeah. And yeah, I think so. For me, part of my turning point was that I turned 30 and then I ended up pregnant, and I was like, holy cow, I'm bringing a human into this world. And it's great. I've gone to law school. I'm now launched my law practice, but there has to be more. Like, I know that I'm meant to make a bigger impact. I'm meant to reach, more lives and more women, internationally, not just like here in California. Like, it's supposed to go bigger. And, when I found out, so it was a surprise. So throughout my pregnancy, I just was like, okay, I'm having a baby. And then when I found out, when my daughter actually arrived, that she was a girl, I was like, oh, okay, now things are like serious, because she's not going to put up with any of the crap that I put up with. She's not going to be told that she can't do things a certain way. And so I let her go out and mismatch clothes. I let her wear whatever she wants, rain boots with the princess dress. I don't care, because I want her to know that she can be the fullest expression of herself at all times. Right.
Yes. I love that. Princess.
Princess. I'm sure you've seen her pictures. I need to have her own Instagram with outfit of the day. I'm sure she'll have lots of followings.
Oh, that's so awesome.
But so stepping into your power, right, and fully loving yourself allows you to be empowered and step into your power. Why is stepping into your power important in terms of creating a legacy, whether it's for your daughters or for, nieces and nephews even, or future generations?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I think the reason why is because when we step into our power, we raise the bar. Mm-hmm. We kind of set a new standard, right? And we create a new normal where we're like, okay, that was yesterday. Like, that was me yesterday, but this, like, Twyla of today doesn't accept that bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Twyla of today has a new standard, has a higher standard. And if you don't fit within it, then, and whatever it is, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be anything. Right? Like, for me, my attitude, right? Like, my, that chip on my shoulder that I had, that had to go because that didn't fit into the new standard, right? So sometimes it's even looking at ourselves internally and saying, okay, what no longer fits the mold, right? What no longer fits into this category or into this standard, or at this level where we're going? What is it that no longer fits? And then we have to look at the difficult ways, that maybe it's losing friends, maybe it's losing toxic people around you, or naysayers who, don't believe in who you're becoming or what you're doing, right? And it's to say, well, I'm doing it anyways. Like, whether you're going to believe me, not believe me, support me, not support me, like, you'll see me on the other side.
Yeah.
But you won't see me here.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know, it's funny. The one thing that came up for me when you were talking was like this idea of like up leveling, right? You're up leveling your life and your relationships. And the other thing is, you know, as moms, we're like, oh, we have to figure this all out on our own. We don't need the support, and we don't need, especially, you know, for the new moms who like may have babies and you're like, oh, I have to be able to figure this. No, stop. Be open to
stop right now.
Stop right now.
Do yourself a favor.
Yeah. Be open to the support, right? And make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the quality of people that you want and that are going to be able to help and uplift you and
absolutely
reach your goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for all your information. And on the final note is, if you had one piece of advice for moms or the women who are tuning in, who are looking for purpose or meaning in their life, what is the one takeaway that you would want them, one thing you'd want them to walk away from your interview with? What would that be?
I have two.
Okay.
And the reason why I have two is because these are the things that I wish somebody had told me when I was in that space. So one is, you are a priority. That's the first one. The second one is to get your ask in gear. And here's why. Because as moms, just as you said, right? Like, we think that we've got it all together. We may not think that, but we want other people to think that.
We think, yeah.
Right?
Everybody else to think we got it all together.
That's right. So we put on our superhero cape. We're trying to like be the mom at the parent teacher whatever, right? The PTA
mom,
meeting.
the boss mom, the girlfriend, like, right? Everything.
Exactly. And now there's like this boss mom hashtag or like, right?
Well, now I got another one I have to add.
Yeah, mompreneur, right? So there's like all this stuff and all this like, but it's kind of glamorized, right? But nobody really looks at, what are these moms truly going through? You know, and so that's why I say get your ask in gear, because ASK. That's right. And the reason why
I get my ass into gear too, but just want to clarify.
Right? Exactly. You're getting your ass into gear is going to make you get your ass into gear. But one of the things that for me, it was like, I looked around, I was exhausted because I hadn't been sleeping. I just had my third daughter, and I was exhausted. And I was looking at my husband, and he was like taking naps and like doing all this stuff, and I was like, the fuck? Right? And so one day I got mad. And so I made a snarky comment, and I was like, dude, like, why do you get to sleep? Like, I wish I could sleep. And he's like, do you want to sleep? And I was like, are you serious?
You're like, yeah.
Like, I'm exhausted here. And he's like, I didn't know. He's like, you looked like you were managing. He's like, you looked like you had it all together. You were still doing everything. And I was like, wow. And he's like, if you want to sleep, why don't you just go to sleep? And I was like, what? Like, it was honestly the simplest thing, but the most mind-blowing conversation I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because as women, we don't want to ask. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to seem like we don't have it all together, like our ducks aren't in a row, right? So we're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to ask for support. And we think that everyone around us knows what we're going through. So we expect people to know that, hey, Twyla over there needs a nap because she's exhausted. She hasn't slept in 2 days, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, Twyla's looking like she's got it all together, and everybody's like, wow, Twyla looks amazing. Like, how is she managing? Right? I wish I could manage like that, right? Yeah. So, but we don't know. People aren't going to know. We can't assume that people know what's wrong with us.
Yeah.
And, you know, this leads to bigger issues like mental health and things like that. And that's why I say you got to know that you're your number one priority. Because if you are the functionality of your household, if you have a breakdown, if you get overwhelmed, if you get too stressed out to the point where you can't function, what happens to the functionality of your home? It's gone. It's out the window, right? So stop running yourself ragged because you're just hurting yourself. You're not doing you or your family any service, So know that you're a priority. Know that you deserve to be number one on your to-do list.
Yeah.
And then two, wherever it is that you need help, support, whatever it is, if you need a nap, reach out to someone. And I know like lots of women look at me who know me and are like, oh, well, that's because you have like a supportive husband and supportive family and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I get that. I am very lucky in that sense. I know there's a lot of moms who are doing double duty and who don't have that, right? But here's the thing. If you need it, the universe somehow has already put your solution in place. You've just got to find it. And maybe that means getting creative. Maybe that means going to your neighbor next door who's also a mom and saying, hey, can we like parent swap where like I can watch your kids for an hour so you can have a nap, and you can watch my kid for an hour so I can get a nap. Like whatever it is. And sometimes it just means, hey, like we've got to get creative on the solution, because I promise you the solution is already out there in the universe somehow, some way. You've just got to find it.
I love a lot of your interview, but I love that, it's, because I'm a single mom. And so I am so grateful that I have my parents who support me like extensively in terms of watching my daughter as I run my business, and I, travel and do whatever it is that I need to make sure that I'm like present when I am with her. Yes. But it's a lot of it is just asking, right? Because I know that, it's saying, you know what, I do need a nap. Can you watch her for an hour? Like, and not feeling the guilt around it, and knowing that you're going to be better off for it, or that she's going to be better off, because you're absolutely right. Like if we're collapsing because we can't keep it all together because we're trying to like, I don't know, keep up with the Joneses or put on this, facade that our life is like absolutely amazing, then our life will literally crumble, right? Because that foundation has now broken, and we haven't asked enough of our partners, of our family members, of our friends. So they don't know what to do when the foundation gets wobbly, or how to make sure that, your kid's still going to like make it to practice because, whatever it is, but asking, my kid needs a ride to basketball or to dance class. Can we alternate days so that I can work a little bit later to get the overtime, or work a little bit later, or just go get a manicure and pedicure because my nails look like crap. Like,
exactly.
Right? Or get in a 20-minute workout. Can you just, drop my kid off? You're going the same way, like, and I'll pick them up. And but
exactly,
that's like super important. Yeah. Go ahead.
Definitely, and releasing the judgment. So if I had a third, that would be the third. Release the judgment, because a lot of times we feel like we're going to be judged by it, right? But really the only person who's judging us is us, right? Like no one else is out there judging us. Like my husband wasn't judging me because I said I needed a nap, which is what I thought that he would, right? Because I thought he was going to be like, well, no, like you shouldn't need a nap. You should be fine. You should have it all together, right? But he was like, dude, if you need a nap, like take a nap. That's right there, right? Or the couch, like wherever you need to go, right? But that's exactly it, is releasing that judgment, and knowing truly the only people who are judging us is us. Yeah. And if somebody out there is judging you, they're one of those toxic people that you need to release.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yes. Absolutely. We are our worst critic. And that kind of just, to bring it full circle, goes back to that self-love and loving yourself fully enough to make yourself a priority and ask for what you need and be open to it, because you are worthy of receiving everything that the universe has, God, the divine, has provided for you and put in front of you. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Twyla. This is an awesome interview. And thank you for tuning in and watching us.
Yes, thank you.
And stay tuned for the next one. Bye.
Yay. Bye.